Hi, everybody. I'm Alan Hauser, your session host, and I'm here to welcome Jamie, who I'll let introduce herself for our third session of the day. So, Jamie, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. Hello, everybody. Depending on your time zone, it's either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. For me, I'm on the East Coast, so we're nearing my coffee break around 3 is when I'm about to snooze. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jamie, and I'm excited about what we're going to talk about. So today I will walk you through a little bit about me, my professional journey, some of my philosophies, and then we'll dive into environmental maturity and how it plays a factor in design operations. So a little bit about me. I'm a seasoned leader with over 15 years of experience, 12 of which I manage teams of a variety of sizes and levels. I have a passion for beautiful science, and I'm an analyst by trait. I enjoy using data to approach and solve a problem. I'm an artist with a specialty in visual and systematic design, and I'm operations guru at heart and love finding efficiencies. And I'm a human. I seek ways to find diversity, accessibility, and mentorship in both my personal and work life. I started my journey as an analyst who moved into, I may have opened the wrong no, that's weird. Sorry about that. My notes got all over the place. So I started my journey as an analyst who moved into product design, and it was a natural fit for me to find a home in design operations. I most recently led design teams at AOL, Verizon, and I'm currently leading the design ops group for Facebook monetization at Meta. Some of the most challenging but invigorating pieces of work I have had the opportunity to be part of include leading the discovery to build of AIG CEO's operating committee, building and scaling the data visualization offering and team at AOL across 14 products, initiating a first of its kind design ops team at Verizon, and leading the design system team for Yahoo, which had the opportunity to drive the Yahoo rebrand in early 2022. My philosophy is pretty simple. I believe in grit and grace. Within the design operations field, I feel like these two guiding principles shine because we are often combated with resistance at every single turn while continuously compelled to find ways to bring our stakeholders along for the journey. My favorite quote is, "Grit is having the courage to push through no matter what the obstacles are because it's worth it." I feel like a lot of the times operations in design is often an afterthought. And I do believe the outcomes often outweigh the cost that it takes, and the benefits are there. So we're going to dive in. So my journey, I do talk about it briefly because it gives me a unique perspective and the opportunity to work in a variety of environments, which allows me to have clarity on how important it is to understand an environment in order to understand how we progress an agenda within the space. So I'm going to walk through some definitions. So one of the most important components of environmental maturity is the top. What is business maturity? There are natural evolution that occurs when businesses, as they progress from infancy to full maturity, and keep in mind that evolution is not concrete. Some companies, most even, don't ever reach full maturity. Maturity is often calibrated by the way of strategy, organization, systems, and management. So let's bring it closer to home. Similarly, measured design maturity is the extent to which businesses incorporate design practices in an overall system. So now let's dive deep into the design maturity data. According to Envision, who have been the pioneers in design maturity and have conducted the largest design maturity study to date, companies with high design maturity see cost savings, revenue gains, and brand and market position improvements as a result of their efforts. So what's the bottom line? According to the data, most companies are not business or design mature. So if we break this out a bit more, design operations from the maturity model, we can deduce that most companies have limited, if any, design operations maturity. Envision's study found that 41% of companies fell into their level 1 category, meaning they lack things like UXR, design systems, design strategy, and design operations. A remarkable only 5% of companies fell into their level 5 category, meaning they have all the bells and whistles of successful design ops org. It is no surprise that design operations does not even hit the map until level 3 on their model, and that is in its infancy, and only 38% of companies fall into their level 3 and above. At our deepest data level, Nielsen Norman Group conducted a survey across 557 design practitioners and found that companies had very low design ops maturity, with most not having specific design ops roles. More so, 44% of the responders indicated they have had a general lack of understanding of what design ops even does. And I want to note, while program management, even some would argue design program management, may have been around for some time, design operations as a strategic partner is still in the pioneer phase. And because of this, I find it often crucial to stick to the foundations of design operations and recognize each and every environment may yield a different solution of process or system. So given all the data we just went through, how does one get started? So a good first step is to run discovery on your current environment. Speak with stakeholders, understand what success looks like in order to plug in what design operations can offer. Once your discovery is complete, overlay a breadth and depth analysis. Does the environment require or allow for design ops to go deep, i.e. be part of the product design programs or projects, or does the environment require breadth, top-down solutions like tracking our work or reporting our portfolio, for example? Or could it be a mix of both? The more we understand our current state, the more we can adjust our offering to support and be successful. So what does some of the design operation foundations that I mentioned earlier look like? So to avoid recreating the wheel, I find following established market foundations always allows a point of reference when working with more resistant stakeholders. I generally use the how we work together, how we get work done, and how we create impact model because it structures the offering in digestible manner. So how we work together, examples like org structure, roles and responsibilities, rhythms of business, hiring, and people operations. To reference that Norman Group survey, they found that only 18% reported activities here. And how we get work done, so processes, tools, portfolio management, design systems, asset management, estimations, and allocation of resources, that Norman Group found that only 20% reported activities here. And then one of my favorite, given my background, is how we create impact around design metrics, reporting, the success stories, our playbooks, and education, that Norman Group found that only 30% reported activities here. So overlaying what success looks like onto the design ops offering allows us to build a clearer prioritization on first steps, as well as an ability to state the problem for stakeholders and propose solutions or an offering that will give them some benefits in return. And all in all, will give a meaning to design operations. Some of the techniques or artifacts that emphasize the design ops purpose in more often than not more often or not a low mature environment are keys and are a key for success. One of the most frequently asked questions I receive: what does design ops do? Here's one example of what I call a do's and a don'ts list. A document like this allows for a quick reference point on partner boundaries. I value this artifact in an environment where you are working with stakeholders who have never worked with a design ops person before, stakeholders who have a variety of ways of working with a design ops person, or a more junior resource who may just need some who may just need some guidance or an artifact to help them with their stakeholder conversations. It's important to keep in mind that this artifact may look different within the context of each and every individual environment, and that this also keeps the word menu at bay. While I personally like the word menu because it creates clear boundaries on how we can offer our support, it allows for, the word has often been taken in a negative connotation. Here, we're just offering our do's and don'ts on the service. The second tool is reporting. I use this tool a lot. I mentioned I started my career as an analyst. I say it a couple times, but I also moved into visual design. So curating these opulent visuals to tell data stories brings stakeholders along for the journey while having an often matured shared success. I have coined this as design science in design operations. The report you see here illustrates a design org's progression on moving to more organized and efficient Figma structure. This report can call attention to areas exceeding, areas who may need additional support, those not participating to create gamification, as well as emphasize the size of the effort when it succeeds to leadership, i.e. it is incredibly successful to have over 300 designers, design managers, and design directors moving and navigating 6,000 files at a given time into a single location. I often use reports like this for both business objectives as well as to call attention to team success directly related to things outside business objectives. One of the most exciting things I got introduced to when I first joined Meta was the thanks portal. The Facebook Meta environment encourages us to thank our peers and leaders for their support. To add, they have built a custom database that holds all the thanks data for management. Curating a visual to represent my team's thanks was a priority for me, giving them an opportunity to be seen for their hard work, building a visual that will show leadership the quantity, the breadth, and the frequency calls attention to not only the success of the team, but also the success of the thanks tool itself. I believe that the thanks tool in general will allow us to better provide a good offering to our partners, but also highlight the areas where we were super successful. The reports also are not only for one-offs, but I tend to leverage these visuals for general cadence reports as well. The more we can tell a story with the data, the more purpose we could bring our community. So applying the design operations practice to a real environment such as Facebook Marketplace, which if you are unfamiliar is a place for people to discover, buy, and sell items. Our Facebook Marketplace Design Ops team operates both breadth and depth to strategically partner on bringing beautiful user experiences to our products that support the monetization strategy. Some of the key ways we partner are through planning. Design operations operationalizes the planning process for efficiency while simultaneously participating in strategy sessions at the highest level of leadership to bring innovation and impact to our future roadmaps. We sit at the table, we have conversations, we help identify the things that should hit the future roadmaps, and we also bring operational expertise on how to best incorporate those rhythms into our team's day-to-day. We are generally the connective tissue. Design ops is seen as the key aligner of cross-functional partners such as product and eng, as well as our horizontal design teams such as design systems and visual systems, operationalizing the way we are able to see work across functionally to mitigate overlap and decrease future design debt. We highlight areas where system teams need to be stepped in or maximize the review sequency in order to identify any overlaps across teams. A lot of the times in our work, we are working with more than 5 different teams at a time, and we're trying to ensure that our designers are on the ground designing and not worrying about if their work is duplicate of somebody in another team. So we often are connecting tissues there. Another big portion of our work is program management and reporting. So design ops is the key to having real data to support questions like, what is my team working on this week? Are we under or over capacity? What projects align to specific strategy? Identification of overlap or cross-team responsibilities. If there's a portfolio risk, and a lot more related to the data efficiency that we can gain from operationalizing our portfolio. We like to also operationalize the reporting cadences provided at all levels of leadership into key data points to help drive business decisions, and in many cases, moving forward with the design operations recommendation. We also support bench planning. Bench planning continues to be more and more of a priority as our current economy and a current economic environment affects our business environment. Most teams are trying to do more with less, and hard decisions are continuing to affect our industry. So here, Design Ops operationalizes the bench planning to ensure we continuously monitor our bench and at all levels of flight risk, promo forecasting, mentorship, general support, and scenario planning. And lastly, we support sprints. we are not just scheduling sprints, we're not just coordinating the people on the ground on sprints. Generally, Design Ops finds the depth on our P0 work by operationalizing and participating in our sprints, driving collaboration, thought leadership. We're directly related to the output that happens during those sprints to find ways to hit our roadmap in future quarters ahead. So that is my quick and dirty environmental maturity Design Ops briefing. Thank you for taking the time with me today. I enjoyed sharing a bit about my journey and philosophies with you, along with going deep on the data of business design and Design Ops maturity, or the lack thereof in most cases, and how the Design Ops foundations can help us build purpose for our community. And I will open for questions.
Okay, wonderful. Jamie, thank you so much. Am I coming through?
You are.
All right. Okay, one thing I found fascinating is how you took your background as a business analyst and took it into design with a focus and interest on reporting. And I think I'm probably formulating a question as a stream of consciousness, if there is one. So how is this a really tight fit for the Meta culture, or I assume Meta is an organization that values data, that values reporting, that makes data-driven decisions. Is that assessment or speculation accurate? And do you think you would have the same buy-in and maybe different challenges in an organization with a different culture?
I think like the bottom line is that so my background is super unique in that I definitely tend to lean into data to answer questions. I think the overall like summary of where I'll respond is that Design Ops in general is generally new to the industry overall. I think that regardless of those who may have had experience with program management or design program management in the past, the strategic layer is still new. And I think that the big takeaway is that environment will dictate how you support from Design Ops. And it could be at the data layer, which I do lean in a lot on, but it also could be at your table with your partners talking about the UXR study that was conducted last week. It could be about talking about proposing a new experience for the marketplace. It could lean into a bunch of different directions related to your foundations. It could also be, how are we going to onboard our team? What's the best practice to do that? So I think that a lot of what shined through in mine has been around data, but I do think it really depends on what your environment needs in terms of how mature you are as a company, because the lack of maturity, generally you're going to be low-level Design Ops support. If you're in a very mature company and a mature group, then your Design Ops support may be a lot more strengthened. So I think it really depends on evaluating your maturity within your current environment, and that will help dictate where you may lean in when it comes to design operations. But I would just continue to pressure that the Design Ops group is relative, like the strategic portion of it is relatively new. I come from a design background for a long time. This is me leaning into the operational side recently. And there's just so much opportunity there. And I think the more we continue to open people's eyes around Design Ops, the more they'll be able to see the leverage capability there.
Okay, wonderful. And I think your answer is a great lead in for one of the questions in the chat. Santosh asks, and this is about maturity and assessing maturity. So our journey has always been evolving, new things keep coming. In one aspect, in that aspect, or in that context of evolution and new things, new tools, new processes, how do we say companies are matured? How do we assess maturity? Does that mean every time if we're with the latest things or technologies adapted? Is that a measure for maturity? And apologies for my attempt to paraphrase and embellish a little bit. I hope I made a positive contribution. So
No, you're totally fine. I think that I mentioned on this slide, actually, I thought the words were here, but they're not. So generally business design at every depth, it starts at business and it goes into design, and then every portion of design can be measured a maturity perspective. I think it's less about the details because tech is evolving. It's always evolving. There's changes every single day. It's less about the book of business or what's around us. It's a book. If you've ever I have an MBA, and so when you get your MBA, you basically learn the basics of business, right? Like the principles of how you run a great business. None of those have really changed over time. I think that what the business have changed. And so a lot of the maturity is, if you look at the great studies that are out there, they're measured based off of like the operating committee, how well strategy is established, communicated, and trickles down to the bottom layers at IC level. So I think some of those basic principles of how you measure maturity haven't really gone away. I think that when you go deep into the design layer, some of those levels of assessing maturity have evolved, right? Like 5-7 years ago, we would never even consider design systems as part of the maturity, although today it definitely is. And it's a big portion of maturity. And I think that's going to continue to evolve. I think there's going to be like the business layer of maturity, which may or may not evolve in depth. And then I think as tech continues to grow and opportunity and capability continues to grow, I think some of those lower layers within, each layer, each specialty of design, potentially, those will definitely evolve as the world evolves into what the offering is. And then we just have to keep an eye on a more horizontal, organic type of measurement that comes with that.
Okay. I love the answer you said earlier in your response, something to the effect of the assessment or the metrics for a successful business haven't changed. The strategies, the techniques may change, but the base assessment is not. So I thought that was quite insightful. So Sandra says, I often find it difficult to land on a metric that means something to all stakeholders and leaders. How do you start that definition yourself? What questions do you ask yourself to arrive at those?
Great question. Definitely difficult. Totally could relate. I would say I don't personally lean into a single metric that it could be equal. I generally ask the question of what are my stakeholders trying to get to this, and what are their answers to success? And sometimes they're not the same. And I could definitely say that when I'm talking to my product partners versus my design partners versus my end partners, their answers to success may be very, very different. I lean into my time on design systems. Generally, they would respond very differently. Eng would care about making sure the component was governed and making sure the component had minimal change in a code perspective to save their capacity. The design partners wanted to make sure it was pixel perfect every single time, and so they wanted to spend capacity on the review phases. So I think that my opinion is there may not be a single metric to fit every single stakeholder. I'm always leaning into the fact that there's transparency on metrics overall. So if you collectively as a core team responsible for an objective agree that there's 3 metrics that you're all going to align to, then there's responsibility across the board to align to those 3 metrics together, rather than feeling like a single person has to go to 3 different places to align on 3 different metrics. You're agreeing to come together on all 3 metrics. In some cases you win and you have 1 metric to answer everything, but I've been very minimally in that space where I've been able to have 1 metric to answer everything. And it's generally, I try to get everybody to agree to all 3 metrics and work together to achieve those metrics together.
Okay, great. Wonderful. So Anne makes an observation, usability maturity or UX maturity. It's not very new. The first models were created 25 years ago. Most people in the US are not aware of them because of the early maturity work happened mostly in Europe. And I don't have experience with Ann's observation. I do have some experience with, I think, one of the first maturity models, the capability maturity model from the Software Engineering Institute. I'm from Pittsburgh. I went to Carnegie Mellon. It's very, very near and dear to my heart. So, Jamie, do you have any knowledge of the history of maturity models?
So we'll clarify. Definitely, my reference to the new piece of it was related to design ops maturity. Design systems maturity is another one. In terms of general maturity overall, that's kind of like what I said about the business one. These things have been around for decades, and a lot of the maturity measures have not changed. I think when it comes to design ops, that is as far as my research that I've conducted. And Anne, please send me anything you have, because I'm so eager to learn if there is stuff outside. But in terms of like design ops specifically and design systems specifically, those areas I personally haven't been, been able to. And I will preface that when I say design ops, I don't mean program management or design program management. I do see them very separately. But in those capacities, my research rendered more recent research, not anything past 25 years. But in general business, in general, use like design overall, I would 100% agree. And there's decades of research. My note on the new piece was just related to design ops, and I would even skew some of the system work too. But please contact me if you have stuff.
Okay, wonderful. So attendees and Jamie, if there are no further questions, I think we can wrap up the session, but I want to thank Jamie. Jamie, can attendees contact you after
Absolutely.
the session?
Yes, I'm eager. And Anne, please definitely send me anything you have. I always like to build on this information that I'm sharing.
Okay. Well, thanks for a very rich, just contentful presentation. I think we all learned a lot, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of Convey UX. Thanks again, Jamie.
Bye, guys.